Hey there, Julian here. Coach Haley.
Hi.
As you know, Chapter 6, Mindset. The most important of all of these. I know it sounds a little vague, I know it sounds a little bit like kind of frou-frou, but like this is where change happens. Understanding human motivation, behavior change, why we do what we do, why we don't do what we think we should do, why previous diets or training programs have not worked for you, right? Like why this stuff might actually work for you. This is critical. So let's dive right into it. We're gonna talk a little bit about self-determination theory, and we're gonna talk about growth versus fixed mindset. So self-determination theory is pretty much the gold standard right now of what we have to go on about understanding human motivation and why people do what they do and how to cultivate motivation. So Haley, break that down for us.
Yeah, so we are going to break that down into three big buckets, which is autonomy, competence, and relatedness or community. So autonomy being, we need to own the decision that we're making. It has to be something that we have decided for us. We're not being influenced to make that decision. This is something that we have kind of come up with that we want to do. So that's the autonomy is like the choice, the decision that we're making. Competence is having the skills and the ability to go forward with that decision and to be successful. So everything that we've been learning for the past 6 weeks is to help you be more competent and more confident in what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think autonomy, the way I like to think about it is I'm acting in accordance with my own ideals, my own values, right? My own belief system, right? That when you are doing that, as she said, not influenced by someone else or society or anything along those lines, it really gives us the ability to feel like we're acting in alignment with who we are, and we're going to stick with it a little bit longer, right? Competency is the feeling like I possess the skills to do the thing. The opposite of that is what more people understand, which is like, I know what to do, I just can't make myself do it. Yeah. That's pretty demotivating, right? Yeah. And, you know, relatedness, community, belonging, just not feeling like you're alone on an island, right? I think that's really important. So as we look at these things, right, like, sure, the autonomy part of it is really that you are the one steering the ship. You're picking your goals.
Your agenda.
And that's what you're doing with your habit tracker.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, right? Competency, like you possess the skills. We've already talked about process-oriented goals versus results-oriented goals. That's a very, very direct way to help you feel like you're building up your toolbox and you're building skills versus like, did I pass or did I fail, right? And then belonging, relatedness, community, people who are involved on the path with peers, right, are more successful. Hence why as an industry, we've started to shift away from only doing one-on-one personal training into more of a small group, more of an intimate personal setting of getting people together that are on the path.
Yep, absolutely. I think that ties well into intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Yep. So all of those things lean heavily towards helping you build intrinsic motivation. So things that are important to you align with your values, as opposed to doing something for extrinsic value, which is usually so that you're avoiding some kind of punishment or you're having some kind of an external validation.
Yeah, so extrinsic would be something along the lines of like, I want to lose weight, I want to look good naked, I want to look good in a bathing suit, I have a trip coming up. All of those are fine. They're absolutely fine. Intrinsic motivation is more like, who am I? What are my values? What does this say about me as a person and my place in the world? And so they both have their own positives and negatives, right? So extrinsic motivation provides you with the power to make immediate change, right? I want to lose weight, so I'm going to not have those drinks tonight. I'm not going to go out to eat. I'll make some broccoli and things like that, right? The problem with that is that there's a shelf life on that, and that usually doesn't last past life stresses, or it's impacted by our upbringing, our environment, right? Like people who live in our house, past the first couple drinks, you kind of forget, right? So it has positives, but it has a limitation. And so intrinsic is like it stands the test of time, right? Like I am someone who values my body. I want to be a role model for my children. I am a father that teaches my children that their body's important, that their health is, all these things, right? The problem with that is this. So that stands the test of time, which is, it's positive, but the negative is it's so global and it's not immediate that it's really hard to take immediate action. So there's this concept called integration. Right? How do we flow? How do we marry the two of those together? So having some specificity around some of these actions and behaviors and having some of these mini goals is great, but we need to also get people thinking about values and things along those lines so it just keeps them going. I guess the perfect example would be a runner. We all know someone who runs and I'm like, hey, tell me about yourself. And they're like, oh, I'm a runner. And I'm like, you're a runner. Like you are a human that likes to run. It's like a thing, but like it's become part of their identity, right? And so they generally don't miss that many. And if they do, they get right back on the horse the next time.
Yep. Yeah. We're going to talk a lot in this chapter about mindset versus mindfulness. Yeah. And your mindset is the conversation that you're having in your head about who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. All right. So we have like positive versus negative self-talk. And we're going to talk in a moment about growth versus fixed mindset, and that all applies. Something that is going to be useful for your tracker is going to be the things you can do to help develop mindfulness, which is the ability to notice and name how you're feeling, to be able to sit with a feeling of discomfort and get through it without trying to go for a negative coping mechanism. Yeah. And those are the things that I implore you, like strategies like journaling, like meditation, things where you're really delving into your self-care just for you specifically is so important.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so she touched on growth versus fixed mindset. I think that's the last important concept that we really, want to help to educate you about. It comes from a child psychologist and psychologist from a woman named Carol Dweck, and she basically did a lot of this research on children and their learning habits and what creates success around that stuff. And this idea around fixed mindset is that, like, if I'm going to be successful or for success, everything that I do fits neatly in this little box, right? It has to look like this. Yeah. So it's binary thinking. It's like yes, no, good, bad, right? Growth mindset is kind of the opposite of that, where we're thinking about what did I learn from the situation? Mm-hmm. How am I challenging myself, right? With every challenge comes growth and things like that. So we can use that, adults use that in terms of making major changes in their lives, right? And so a lot of these process-oriented goals versus results-oriented goals comes from that idea around growth mindset and like asking yourself, okay, if you set a goal for yourself or you're using the habit tracker and it didn't happen, why? Not I'm bad, I didn't do the thing. Like, what is it? Was the goal right? Was it not right? Do we need to change the strategy around that, right? And if we know, as we've talked about in previous chapters, is like, oh, if I know I need to eat more protein, like, well, just like, oh, and I didn't do it, like, okay, what was the hurdle, right? We know that's not going to change, right? Eating more protein is not something that's going to change. Doesn't mean, oh, it's not working, so I might as well go vegetarian, right? So, like, what am I actually going to take the emotion out of it and look at the data and be able to say, like, okay, what were my obstacles and how can I navigate around those things?
Yeah, and a fixed mindset person is also someone that tends to believe that whatever skills they currently have is like all that they have to throw at trying to learn something new, that, by talent alone we get somewhere, and someone with a growth mindset understands, like, no, I can learn these things, I can adapt, I can get better, I can learn from my setbacks.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of our diet culture, a lot of diet programs don't work, is because they play into the fixed mindset. Like, okay, you have to eat these types of macros or these calories, and you only eat these foods, and if we kind of have built up a fixed mindset in our lives, we gravitate to those things because it's what we know. It's comforting, it's normal, or whatever it might be. It's familiar, I guess is the best way to say it. And then, and so this type of process, this program is much more abstract, right? And that's why if you actually hear what we're saying and try and integrate these things, it's much more successful.
Yeah. And so we're going to encourage you with this last chapter and the B guide, so the work part of it. Some of you are going to find this really easy or enjoyable, and some of you are going to really struggle to do this and to really go all in on being really honest with yourself about your answers. I can't encourage you enough. Like, really just take the time to dive into this. These are the answers. These are the things you're going to learn and start to notice that are going to propel you forward to keep you going for the long haul.
Yeah, change is hard. Yeah. That's why we're here. That's why we're in business, right? So we're here to help you. You know, just as we say at the end of each video, chapters like, just reach out to us. Yeah. Let us help you along the process. We're giving you the tools to do this on your own. By all means, there's nothing wrong if you didn't reach out to us. No big deal, right? That's great. That's awesome. But like, if you need to, that's cool too. All right. So we're here to help.